What's good, y'all? Throughout the whole trade deadline today and a little bit even yesterday, because that's when the trade started to trickle in, I've been keeping track of all the different trades, see which player goes where for what draft picks and all of this to make sure that you guys have all the information you need to know. So in this video, we're going to be going over every single trade in the trade deadline. I'm going to be giving my thoughts, I'm going to grade them all, and then let me know in the comments what you guys think about all these trades. I'm going to be going in order from earliest trade to the last trade that happened just at 3 o'clock. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the first trade. This first one's a real blockbuster, guys. Simone Fio going over to the Detroit Pistons in exchange for Kevin Knox and a 2024 second-round pick via Washington. Obviously, there's going to be some trades that are more impactful than less impactful. I'm going to be talking about certain trades for longer than others, and this one is one of those ones where I'm going to be pretty short and sweet with it. For the Utah Jazz, I gave them a B+ because they basically rehabbed Simone Fio from nothing, and they got a second-round pick from him, and it's also going to be a pretty high second-round pick because it is from the Washington Wizards, who are one of the worst teams in the league. And then for the Detroit Pistons, I'm going to give them a B grade on this just because I do like the fact that they're bringing in Simone Fio to add some shooting to, help their players, add some spacing around Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, all those guys. They made a few other trades later on that also makes me think that they're really trying to push to get more shooting around this team. But like I said, this one's not really too crazy, so let's move on to the next one. In this next trade, we have Xavier Tillman going to the Boston Celtics, and then Lamar Stevens going to the Grizzlies, along with a 2027 second-round pick from Atlanta and a 2030 second-round pick from Dallas. For this trade, I'm going to give the Grizzlies a B. They're just kind of really folding their hands on the season. We've seen with the Steven Adams trade, they know that this season's a wrap. John Morant's out for the year. Desmond Bane's been struggling through injuries. Jaren Jackson Jr. has been struggling through injuries. Basically, everyone on their team has been injured at one point or another throughout the season. So they're just like, you know what, let's trade away some of these guys, recoup some draft assets. And then also with Lamar Stevens in this deal, I really do like him. I feel like he's a Grizzlies player, if that makes sense. He just feels like he would fit really well with Memphis. He's going to defend hard, give effort. His offense is a little bit shaky. Not even a little bit. His offense is very shaky, but he also will fill that void for that, big wing defender that they lost when Dillon Brooks went to the Rockets. And for the Celtics, I gave them an A grade. I really do like them bringing in Xavier Tillman, really bolstering up that front court depth because, right now their front court is pretty weak, I would say. The only ones I would be comfortable playing in a playoff series, obviously Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, and then Al Horford. I do also want to give a shout out to Luke Kornet and Neemias Queta. Both of those guys have been able to give the Celtics really good spot minutes here and there when they need to. But at the end of the day, Xavier Tillman is just an all-around better player than both of those guys. He's going to be able to defend really well. That's the main reason the Celtics brought him in, to have a really nice defensive-minded guy in that front court now. He'll be able to rebound here and there, roll to the basket. His efficiency and his shots really aren't too good this season. He's shooting, I think, under like 50% as a center. That's not that good. But with a minimized role here in Boston, I think he'll be able to get that up. And again, he's really brought in here for his defense, and that is 100% going to translate. And the last of the trades that happened Wednesday, we have Monte Morris going over to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton, and a 2030 second-round pick going to Detroit. For the Pistons, I'm going to give them a B. Really, they're just getting draft capital for their vets, which makes sense because they are a horrific team. They're not doing anything winning-wise. So you might as well, get your assets up for the vets that are on your team right now. Monte Morris literally played 6 games for Detroit this season, and they were able to get some type of draft capital back for him. So I say that's pretty good. And then for the Minnesota Timberwolves, I gave them a B+. I really like Monte Morris coming in here and giving them just another option besides Mike Conley to run point guard. Jordan McLaughlin's cool. He's cool, don't get me wrong, but in the playoff, you probably don't want to play him. Monte Morris is playoff tested with Denver. He was a great backup point guard for them for all those years. So him coming over in Minnesota, I think he's going to be able to slot into that backup point guard position, keep the offense flowing when Mike Conley's not there, and hopefully mitigate some of the offensive turmoil that Minnesota's going through right now. And the first trade that happened officially on the trade deadline was Buddy Hield going to the 76ers. This later on turned into a 3-team deal, adding in the Spurs here, so hold on to your seats. I'm going to explain this as best as I can. Of course, as I mentioned, we have Buddy Hield going over to the Philadelphia 76ers. The Pacers are getting back Furkan Korkmaz, Doug McDermott, and 3 undisclosed second-round picks, while the Spurs take on Marcus Morris, who they will be waiving, and a future second-round pick from the Pacers. Starting off with the Philadelphia 76ers, in this trade I gave them an A. I really like the fact that they brought in Buddy Hield to add some shooting and some offense at that guard position. Obviously, you know, they have Tyrese Maxey, who is their second best player there. He is a whole offense in his own right. But beyond him, they really didn't have too many other guards that can really provide for themselves. You know, D'Anthony Melton, he's been hurt for a while, but, you know, even when he is playing, he can do a little bit here, a little bit there, but not anything crazy offensively. Kelly Oubre has stepped up. I see him more as a wing, though, but because, like I said, D'Anthony Melton's been out, he had to slide over to that guard position. And they haven't yet announced how long Joel Embiid will be out, how much time he will be missing. So while he is not on the court, they need to produce some type of offense, you know, really recuperate. I mean, he's averaging 35 points per game. Buddy Hield's not going to bring all of that back, but he can at least help bring some more offense to this team. And then when Joel does come back, I can see Buddy Hield operating very similar to how JJ Redick operated with when he was with the 76ers. You know, they had a lot of good chemistry, JJ and Embiid, with their dribble handoffs, you know, able to come off the screen right there. Buddy Hield is a great shooter off the screen, so he will be able to fill that role very nicely. And then also he just spreads the floor for Joel to operate down low in the post and for Tyrese Maxey to get to the rim and just, you know, he is one of the league's best three-point shooters, so I really do like this pickup. Then for the Pacers, I gave them a C+ on this grade. I know Buddy Hield is having a little bit of a down season, and he's on the last year of his contract, and, you know, coming into the season, he was rumored to be moved, so his trade value is definitely at an all-time low right now. But that doesn't change the fact that I wish they would have gotten a little bit more from Buddy Hield. Doug McDermott is having a great shooting season down there in San Antonio, so him coming over here, he's going to be able to bring some of that shooting that they're now losing from not having Buddy Hield anymore. But my main thing is the draft capital. Only getting 3 second-round picks for Buddy Hield, like, I would at least want you to get a first. You know, at least. Then for the Spurs, I'm going to give them a B. They just kind of swooped into this deal, took on Marcus Morris, who, like I said before, they are probably going to be waiving him. They got rid of Doug McDermott, and they're bringing in a second-round pick. You know, again, the Spurs, they're not a competitive team right now, so it makes sense that they're trading away their veterans and bringing in draft capital. Here we have another deal involving the Utah Jazz. They are sending Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji over to the Toronto Raptors in exchange for Kira Lewis Jr., Otto Porter Jr., and a 2024 first-round pick, which will be the lower of the Clippers or the OKC Thunder's pick. For the Utah Jazz, I want to give them a B+ on this trade. I want to give them credit for selling high on their role players and their vets, because we've seen countless times where teams will hold on to their guys. I mean, literally just the last trade we talked about with Buddy Hield. You know, you hold on to your guys till they're on the last year of their contract, or they have a bad season or whatever. Kelly Olynyk is hooping this season, and he's a vet. He doesn't fit their timetable, so they're like, you know what, let's maximize his value and get what we can for him. And in this case, it is a first-round pick, which is amazing. And then, of course, they also did have Ochai in this trade, and I have to believe that the fact that Keontae George is coming out and having such a great rookie season, it made it a little bit easy for them to kind of just move on from Ochai. But, you know, either way, I am really happy with the trade package that they got back. Then for the Raptors, I'm giving them a C+, just because I'm a little bit confused on why you would do a trade like this. You know, they just traded Pascal Siakam, they just traded OG Anunoby, and they committed to, you know, being not tanking, but a rebuilding team. Yet they just traded away a first-round pick for a veteran in Kelly Olynyk. The one thing I could be thinking of is maybe they are super high on Ochai Agbaji, but even at that point, a first-round pick, bro, for that, come on, calm it down. Once I saw this trade, this is when I knew the trade deadline was really starting to get going. We have Gordon Hayward going to the OKC Thunder in exchange for Trey Mann, Vasilije Micic, and Davis Bertans, along with draft compensation. Before I give the grades, of course, the draft compensation, you know, it hasn't been released just yet, from my knowledge at least. I tried looking around Twitter and everything, but Woj never said anything, Shams never said anything. I tried looking it up, I couldn't really find anything. So I assume maybe it's a first-round pick, one of the many first-round picks that OKC has, or at bare minimum it has to be 3 to 4 seconds, but I would assume it's at least 1 first round pick. For the Thunder, I want to give them a B+ on this trade. They're bringing in Gordon Hayward, who's, you know, a great 3-level scorer, veteran as well. He can just add an extra little fold into their offense, not only just scoring wise, but he is also a very willing passer. You know, not even just willing, I think he's above average passer for a wing at least. I think he'll be able to fit in very nicely with OKC's free-flowing offense. I assume they're going to have him coming off the bench as well to be just kind of like that 6-man type of just spark go in. You know, him and Isaiah Joe in the game at once, bro. The offense could get pretty crazy. And then an underrated part of this trade, I think, is the fact that Gordon Hayward has a lot of playoff experience, you know, both with Utah and with Boston. And this OKC team, which is looking to contend, they are very, very young and have almost no playoff experience. You know, Shea has some with the Clippers and with that one Chris Paul year. Lou Dort has some with that one Chris Paul year. And that's about it. You know, everyone else, I'm pretty sure, has no playoff experience. So bringing in Gordon Hayward, where he can come in a playoff series and kind of settle things down if needed, I think is a very underrated part of this trade. Then for the Hornets, I'm going to also give them a B+ on this trade. Right now, in the point of their rebuild, they need to gather as much talent as possible and as much draft capital as possible. And they got a little bit of both in this trade. Of course, Trey Mann, you know, only being, I think, like 22, 23 right now. He is a young, promising scorer, which, again, they have nothing to really lose out there in Charlotte. They got to bring in as much guys as they can. I also really do like the fact that Micic is in this trade as well, because he is a above average passer, I would say, and with LaMelo being out right now, you know, they kind of got Ish Smith, and that's about it at the playmaking, really, over there in Charlotte. And with Brandon Miller being so nuclear right now, I think having a good passer alongside with him will make it just a little bit easier to run through the offense. And then again, I'm assuming the draft compensation is at least 1 future first round pick from, you know, a plenty of the ones that OKC has. Again, I'm not entirely sure which one that is, so if it's not a first round pick, the grade can go down a little bit. If it is a good first round pick, it could go up a little bit. But for Gordon Hayward being on the last year of his contract, I think the Hornets got a pretty good haul back. Now, for my personal favorite trade of the trade deadline, of course it is including my New York Knicks. We have Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks going to New York in exchange for Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, Ryan Arcidiacono, and 2 second-round picks. Starting off with the Knicks' perspective of this trade, I'm giving them an A+. I think this is an absolutely perfect trade. It fills both of the 2 biggest holes on their roster, which is, of course, a bench ball handler and then forward depth. And again, like I said, they filled both of those holes in this one trade. Alec Burks is going to be able to run the offense when Jalen Brunson is not on the floor. You know, we've seen these past few games now that you know, ever since trading Emmanuel quickly, the Knicks have been really missing that 6-man guy, you know, that guy to run that second unit right there. And Alec Burks is going to be able to do that, get buckets for himself. And also, he is a pretty decent passer, I would say, so he'll be able to get the other teams involved in those few minutes that Jalen Brunson's not on the court. And then also, his shooting ability will make it pretty easy for him to slot in and play alongside Jalen Brunson or alongside Julius Randle and all these other guys. Then with Bojan, he's going to be able to come off this Knicks bench and give them shooting, give them size. Again, 2 things that they really did need to add upon as well. And then, like I said, with Alec Burks, Bojan is going to pretty easily be able to slot in and play alongside, you know, the other OGs and Julius and Jalen and the other starters like that. You know, the one thing I would say is his defense is pretty subpar compared to the rest of this Knicks roster. But again, with the rest of the Knicks roster being pretty good to above average defenders, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to hide him pretty well. Then for the Pistons, I gave them a C- in this trade. I feel like, you know, when you have your best trade asset in Bojan Bogdanovic, and the only thing you can get back from him is not even a first round pick, I feel like that's just really poor asset management, especially when you think about how last year teams were offering 2 first round picks for Bojan at the trade deadline, and they declined. Now you got 2 second-round picks. Not only that, though, but the fact that Alec Burks is also included in this, so you give up 2, again, really quality role players, and you only get back salary filler, Quentin Grimes, and 2 second-round picks. It's very underwhelming. Honestly, Quentin Grimes is the only thing that stopped me from giving them a D on this trade, because I do think that he's going to be able to fit alongside with their core that they have right now. You know, with Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren, I think that, you know, Quentin Grimes fits the timetable with them as a young player, and he can also come in and space the floor with his shooting, defend really well, and those are 2 things that Detroit really does need. Next up, we have the Washington Wizards sending Daniel Gafford to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Rashawn Holmes and a 2024 first-round pick from OKC. So in a very small way, this is technically a 3-team trade. In order for Dallas to acquire the 2024 pick from OKC, they did a pick swap in 2028. So, again, it's very minor. That's why I didn't include it in the graphic, but just for clarity for you guys. So in a way, the Dallas Mavericks traded salary filler and a pick swap for Daniel Gafford, and that's incredible value if you ask me. So for that reason, I gave the Dallas Mavericks an A on this one. I think Daniel Gafford is super underrated, and he's also kind of like the perfect center to put alongside Luka Doncic. He'll screen hard, he'll roll hard, he's a great lob threat, and he blocks shots. The one thing you could really say is he's a little bit undersized, but luckily for the Dallas Mavericks, if they want some more size at that center position, they have a 7-foot rookie that could do basically all those same things. And Derek Lively has been amazing for the Mavericks this whole season. You know, he's dealing with injuries here, injuries there. He'll be out for a little bit, come back, be out a little bit more. So I really do like this trade because it just kind of gives Derek Lively just some more breathing room to not have to be the only good center on this Mavericks roster. You know, if he's having a bad game, they could swap him out. Or if he's hurt and dealing with certain things, they could, put Daniel Gafford in. I really do like this depth move for the Mavericks. Then for the Wizards, I gave them a B on this because, again, kind of like what I said with the Hornets and the Pistons, at this stage of the rebuild, you want to just get as much young talent and as much draft capital as you can. So in this instance, they got draft capital for a guy that doesn't fit their timetable. Daniel Gafford, he is only 25 right now, so he is still on the younger side. But it's going to take a while for things out there in Washington to get better, so it makes sense. The Raptors were very, very active in the trade market, as you guys can see. They acquired Spencer Dinwiddie, who they're rumored to be waiving soon, in exchange for Dennis Schroeder and Thaddeus Young. This trade all around was a very confusing trade for me and for both teams, really. We'll start off with the Toronto Raptors. I gave them a C- on this just because, they brought in Spencer Dinwiddie, who they are going to be waiving soon, to get off of 1 year of Dennis Schroeder. That's pretty much all it was. Thaddeus Young's expiring after this. They got no draft capital in this. I'm just very confused. This literally would have to be a salary dump just to get off Dennis Schroeder's $12 million next year. But that you at least get some draft capital back usually in salary dumps. So it was just very confusing for me. And then for the Brooklyn Nets, I also gave them a C- just because they should be selling. They should be getting rid of all of their role players and all these guys and rebuilding. But instead, they're still holding on to, I don't even know what. They're holding on to Mikal Bridges' 27-point-per-game season last year, I guess. And they're trying to just keep being competitive. So they bring in Dennis Schroeder. He's a solid point guard. That's why I gave him a C-. I was just very confused on this trade. It doesn't really make too much sense to me for either team. We're coming down to the last few trades here. In this one, we see Dallas bolstering up their front court even more, getting PJ Washington and 2 second-round picks from the Charlotte Hornets in exchange for Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a 2027 first-round pick, top 2 protected. You could tell getting some front court size was a big thing for the Dallas Mavericks going into this trade deadline, because before the trade deadline, they were a very small team. Of course, Grant Williams was their starting power forward for the majority of the season. He was 6'6", maybe. Derek Jones Jr., 6'6", still around there. So, adding in PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, I really do like. For this specific one, for PJ Washington, I gave them a B+ on this trade. Like I said, they're adding size, they're adding shooting. They also are getting off Grant Williams' contract, which is a 4-year, $53 million contract. He's been very disappointing this season, and he hasn't shown any signs of really elevating his play past what he is right now. So I do think, it's a very underrated part of this trade, the fact that they were able to get off that contract. And I did see people saying that, giving up that 2027 first-round pick was too much or whatever. But they are very strapped on draft capital, They don't have many first-round picks. They don't have many second-round picks. In this trade, they actually did get 2 more seconds. So, there's really not much they could do. And for the Charlotte Hornets, I gave them a B. I really do like the fact that they got Grant Williams onto this team because I think he's going to be a very good locker room guy. I think he's the vice president of the Players Association. He's very outspoken and outgoing and all that. leadership type of guy. You know, he talked about in Boston how he was a type of leadership guy. In Dallas, you know, like I said, things didn't go as planned. So hopefully now in Charlotte, he can come in and teach these young guys how to win, how to just operate as an NBA player and really kind of settle down this franchise. And then of course, that super lightly protected first round pick all the way out in 2027. We really have no idea what that could be. So, you know, I really do like the fact that they're still accumulating as much draft capital as possible. And then also just super small little cold note of this deal is the fact that Seth Curry is reuniting with his dad, Del Curry. In case you guys did not know, Del Curry is the color commentator for the Charlotte Hornets. So he'll be able to announce his son games every day. So that's pretty cool. In this one, we have another 3-team trade involving the Phoenix Suns, Brooklyn Nets, and Memphis Grizzlies. In this deal, we see Royce O'Neal and David Roddy going to Phoenix, Jordan Goodwin and Keita Bates-Diop going to Brooklyn, along with 3 second-round picks from Phoenix. And then Yuta Watanabe and Shumezi Metu going to the Memphis Grizzlies. Starting off with the Suns, I gave them a B+ in this one. I really do like the pickup of Royce O'Neal. I think he is a very high-quality role player for championship-level teams. Also, he does have that chemistry with KD as they both played with Brooklyn. And I just, you know, I really like what he brings to this team. He can bring some shooting, some great defense. He's a pretty good passer, too. I think he's pretty underrated as a passer. And just all around, he's one of those guys that does all the little things for a contending team. So I really like the fact that the Suns brought him on for not really too much. Also, David Roddy in this deal, I don't really see him being as big as an impact player for the Suns. I think he's, you know, a decent defender if they need that. And also, they just got younger, you know, him only being, I think, around 22, 23 in that range. So, you know, they are a very old team, so bringing in some youth could always be a good thing. For the Nets, I gave them a B+ because they are actually doing what I think they should be doing for their whole roster, and that is trading away their vets and their role players for draft capital. Of course, in this, it's only 3 second-round picks, but, you know, that's a pretty good return for Royce O'Neal. They do also get Jordan Goodwin and Keita Bates-Diop, which, I mean, they could be getting minutes for the Nets. They could not. I don't really know. I don't think they're too big of an impact player for those guys. And then for the Grizzlies, I also gave them a B+. So B+ all around here. I really like Yuta Watanabe coming back to the Grizzlies. I think he could fit really well alongside with Ja, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. when they are all back next season. That is, of course, if he accepts his player option. His player option is only $2.6 million, so if he does, they have a super high value contract. He's going to be able to come in and, you know, spread the floor for Ja and Desmond and all those guys. And I really do like the fit there. And the last trade of the 2024 trade deadline sees Patrick Beverley going to Milwaukee and Cam Payne going to Philadelphia, along with a 2027 second round pick. Starting off with the Milwaukee Bucks, I give them a B+ on this trade. I really like this trade for the Bucks. I feel like it's super underrated, you know, under the radar type of thing, but I really do like it. Pat Bev has been having a pretty good season out there in Philly so far, and it's obvious that the Bucks' biggest struggle this season has been their defense, specifically their perimeter defense. And when you talk about perimeter defense, Pat Bev is one of the top guys that you think of in today's NBA. So I really like the fact that he's going to be coming in, and he's one of those guys that's 100% effort 100% of the time. So I think he'll be able to come in and just hound guys, maybe even get some other guys to buy in on the defensive end, and really, you know, his locker room impact, I think, is pretty underrated as well. Shout out to Pat Bev. Then for the 76ers, I gave them a B grade, kind of very similar to what I was talking about when we were talking about them acquiring Buddy Hield. Them bringing in Cam Payne brings a little bit more offense to this team, specifically to their guard position. And like I said, with Joel Embiid out, they're going to have to really piece together those offensive possessions. And then also they get some draft capital in this. I really do think that Cam Payne and Pat Bev this season, they've been very, very similar. I do want to say that maybe the 76ers downgraded slightly, but it's damn near the same. I hope this video was helpful for you guys to really get a full grasp on everything that went on this trade deadline. It was super fun to make, super fun to go through all these trades, as it always is at the trade deadline. Just a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite trade was. Of course, mine is the New York Knicks acquiring Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks. I mean, I gotta support my hometown guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave it a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social medias, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch y'all.